Normally, this isn't the type of stuff that I make videos about. Normally, when you come to this channel, you're seeing analysis and technique breakdown, predictions, post-fight reviews, things like that. We've also started to expand recently and get into the coverage of some live events. But typically, we're not reporting on the negotiations and deal making and what's happening behind the scenes and any kind of little feuds or beefs or drama or anything that all these things that a lot of other channels do at an incredibly high level. And it's all over all the time, but it's not really typically the type of thing we do. Now, now that being said, I'm breaking the mold a little bit here. I did want to report on this, right? And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, I think the fight's awesome if it should happen one day, right? Devin Haney versus Shakur Stevenson, man, is the elite amongst the elite at 135 pounds, dude, and it would be absolute fire to see that fight happen. I want to see it. The vast majority of people want to see it. I'm not necessarily sure whether it's going to happen or not, but it doesn't change the fact that it would be awesome, right? So 135 pounds is just on fire right now, and these are two of the guys that are making it that way. So I'm just kind of bringing it out there because there's a lot of people necessarily who wouldn't see this on Instagram or wouldn't see it on Twitter or wouldn't see it reported that way. So I was just kind of bringing it to the light and bringing it to YouTube and just putting it out there and just seeing the sequence of events on how this all happened so that people can kind of stay up to date and see this development of things. And the second point was I was at the Jared Anderson versus Charles Martin fight this last weekend. Jay Prince was there. He had a few fighters on the card, and I was there. I watched the interview that Ron Goodall from Fight Hype was getting with Jay Prince, right? You can go to fighthype.com or fighthype.com or the Fight Hype YouTube channel. You can check it out. Got some phenomenal guys over there doing some outstanding work. And Ron Goodall was one of them who was down there this weekend, and he was getting this interview with Jay Prince. And in the interview, Jay Prince mentions, right? Jay Prince manages Shakur Stevenson. And one of the things he was asked about, and something that he mentioned, was that the fight with Devin Haney wasn't going to happen, or it doesn't look like it's going to happen, or it's not signed yet, whatever it may be. And it's because Devin priced himself out. He said, look, man, there's a few different ways that you can say that you don't want to take a fight. One of those ways is by pricing yourself out. You ask for too much money relative to what you're worth or relative to what the fight can generate. Then the fight can't happen. You get to step back and say, I wanted the fight. I just wasn't getting paid what I'm worth, when in reality, you didn't want it. Right? That was what Jay Prince was saying Devin Haney was doing. I don't know whether or not that's true. I'm just saying that this is what Jay Prince was saying, and it seemed like that was the interview to kind of kick this off, right? Because then we go to Twitter and we see a little bit of back and forth between Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson. Now, here's what's interesting. As boxing fans, we don't always get a lot of the details of the negotiations. We don't always see a lot of what's happening, right? I want to also reference another awesome interview by Ron Goodall that same weekend in Andre Ward, in which he mentions how the fight that we saw between Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford now coming together is another example of us not knowing the details of the negotiations, but those two men came together and made it happen. All right, so back to this one. Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson. We don't see a lot of the details, but one of the things that we can see between this back and forth exchange in Twitter is that both of these men appear to agree, or neither one disputes, 25% is what was offered to Devin Haney. Shakur Stevenson. Devin Haney said, I'll give you 25%. He's the champ. He's undisputed. He's making the offer to Shakur Stevenson, basically, right? Says, I'm going to give you 25%. Shakur Stevenson replies with, dude, I'm basically, I'm paraphrasing here. He's like, I'm worth way more than 25%. Not going to take it. Devin Haney says 25% of this fight right here would be more than you made in your last 3 fights combined. Take it or leave it. Right? They trade a little bit of insults back and forth about somebody ducking, whether or not people can make things happen, whether or not people are really trying to whether or not the fight's really trying to be made, or whatever, right? But here's the thing, 25%. Now you're seeing that he's getting paid 25% for this fight, and I think it's interesting. We all know that Devin Haney came into that fight with George Kambosos. He went over to Australia. He took I don't know how much he took, but apparently he just took whatever was offered to him, wasn't very strict or tough in the negotiations. All he wanted to do was get that fight because all he wanted was those belts. So, he took a low deal going in because he wanted the belts. Anybody with any basic sense would figure that meant that once he had the belts, he was going to start making low deals to other people. That's when he was going to start making all the money. He felt he had all the recognition and negotiating leverage at that point to be able to make it happen. Is that what we're seeing now? I don't know whether 25% is low or not. I have absolutely no idea whether that's considered like a standard deal, whether that's considered low, whether it's normal for most people. But since Shakur Stevenson is such a big name talent himself, that it's considered low relative for him. I just think the whole thing is interesting, and we're kind of being able to see a little bit of it happen. We see it all develop and come out here. Fascinating stuff. So I don't know whether or not this fight is going to get made. Clearly, these negotiations are happening. Sometimes they're probably more productive than others, but there is some back and forth. And I'm sure it's not just the back and forth between the fighters, right? We saw Jay Prince mention it earlier. That means there's also back and forth between the promotional companies or the managers or whoever else may be involved in this negotiation. I only know one thing for sure, man. I only know one absolute thing for sure. And that's that as a fan of the sport, I really want to see these two fight. They are both incredibly talented fighters. They're both young. If the fight should go out here and be even close, if it's really competitive, it's good. That means that both these guys are young enough that we're probably going to be able to see them get a rematch, possibly even a trilogy at some point later on in their careers, probably at a higher weight class. We know Devin Haney is going to be moving up, if not in his next fight, very soon thereafter. Shakur Stevenson, I don't think we're going to see this man play out the rest of his career at 135 pounds. He's still young. He's going to be growing into that frame. So, man, there's going to be, it just sets the stage for great stuff, right? It sets the stage for stuff that builds legends in boxing, right? That builds just straight legacies. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out, man. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think Devin Haney is right for offering him the 25%, take it or leave it? Do you think Shakur Stevenson is right for telling him, I'm worth more than 25% and you knew that I was never going to take that deal? Should Shakur just be taking it anyways? Let me know what you guys think.